So this is why philosophy is so important, to begin to see our situation. It's not about discussing things objectively like Bertrand Russell's table of a table, the tableness of a table. That sort of nonsense is not philosophy. That's just sophistry, playing with words. What we're interested in is finding the right approach to life so our lives can be more meaningful and purposeful, and we can gain development through living. Yes. Does faith mean belief? That's what I want to be talking about today. And if you talk to any priest and you ask what does this word faith mean, he'll tell you that it's actually belief. Belief in God, belief in Jesus Christ, belief in the Holy Trinity, or what you believe in. And it would be the same if you went to a Buddhist teacher and you asked him what is belief, and he would what is faith and what is your faith, and he would say our belief is that life is about suffering, and you want to avoid suffering, so you have to disengage from life. But what Buddhism is all about, it's about ending the suffering by absenting yourself from the situation. And I don't agree with that as a philosophical proposition, but that is, I know I'm being very, very too dogmatic perhaps about that, but that's kind of how it is. And it's the same with all religions have their beliefs, but actually faith is something a bit different, I believe. And faith includes the concept of trust. Now, I want you to understand that it's not just what you believe, it's because you believe it that you trust in it. I believe that the staircase is firm in my house, that I can walk on it. And I believe that it's safe for me to walk upstairs on that staircase. It's going to get me there. And so I'm not afraid to use it. I trust it. I have faith in it. And that's kind of how I see the word faith is bigger than just belief. It's not just that I say, well, the staircase is fine. It's there. It's actually I trust it. I trust it to walk on it. And that's kind of how we approach many different things in life, many different aspects in life. If you're a Christian, you trust that there really was a guy called Jesus Christ who walked on the earth and taught apostles and threw out demons and carried out miracles. And people said he was the Son of God, and he was the Messiah. And he fell out with the Roman and high priests of Judaism, fell out with them, and was crucified. And they believe that he rose from the dead, and he was able to then discuss and talk with his apostles some more before going off to heaven. That is what the Christian religion is all about, and people who call themselves Christians believe that. If they don't believe that, they're not Christians, not in any real sense. They can be discussing comparative religions and looking at this story and saying, well, yeah, it's an interesting story. Maybe there's this man who was something special, maybe, and people believe that he rose from the dead. But you can be like that, but you're not a Christian. You're only a Christian if you trust it, if you have the faith that this was actually so. You might not fully understand that faith. You might not fully understand the story, but you believe enough to want to go with it. So in order to live meaningful lives, we have to have faith in people and also ideas. Our faith provides the scaffolding for our worldview. It justifies our actions. So I want you to see that your worldview is composed with having faith in a lot of different things. You might have faith in democracy as the means of as being able to get decent government. I know it's being challenged a lot at the moment. You may have faith in the reliability of the bus service. The bus service, you say, you look at your watch and you say, yeah, there'll be a bus here in half an hour. I better get down to the bus stop give myself 10 minutes to be there. You trust that the bus is going to run. You don't think, oh, I can't trust the buses. I better thumb a lift. No, you have a sense that this is something that's been set up. It's been reliable. I can trust it. Now, your faith in buses and trains and things can be sorely tested to the point where you no longer trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And the same is true of everything in life. But we have all sorts of things that we have faith in. Everything from the sun's going to rise tomorrow to that we can make an appointment with the doctor to go and see the doctor in 4 weeks' time or whatever. That there's going to be a doctor there, that we're going to be able to go there. We're not going to be put under martial law and not allowed to go out of our house. You have trust in all these different things, and you rely on it, like walking up the staircase. So this is why philosophy is so important, to begin to see our situation. It's not about discussing things objectively like Bertrand Russell's table of a table, the tableness of a table. That sort of nonsense is not philosophy. That's just sophistry, playing with words. What we're interested in is finding the right approach to life so our lives can be more meaningful and purposeful, and we can gain development through living. People wear uniforms that define roles we can trust. We often judge people by the uniforms they wear. That's true, isn't it? The doctor's white coat and stethoscope tells us he understands the body. We go to him or her when we're ill. So if you've ever been in hospital, the doctors, they're the ones that have the stethoscope hanging around their neck. They're probably not going to use it on you. They don't. It's like a badge. They wear the stethoscope and, he's the doctor. And he probably got a white coat on. Not always, but probably. Or maybe he's wearing the special clothes they wear for going into the theatre. I say, he's a surgeon, and he's wearing that uniform. And the same with nurses, they have uniforms, or the porters, they have uniforms. People have uniforms, and even where they don't have uniforms, they have uniforms. So the priest's dog collar sets him apart as a holy man of God. So when you see someone who's got this dog collar, you immediately think, well, this guy is a priest, or the equivalent perhaps in one of the Protestant denominations. He's going to be an expert on the Bible. He's going to be an expert on this religion. And you take them as such. And so he's able to stand up in his pulpit and deliver you a sermon, and you'll listen to him, or you probably fall asleep. But you can't go up in that pulpit, give a little sermon. You're not entitled to. He's got the dog collar. He's got probably a big costume. If he's a Roman Catholic priest, he's got all sorts of robes and things on. He's the one that can do the stuff. You're the one to be in the audience. So we trust people to be able to fulfill the tasks that they wear the uniform of. And it doesn't always work, does it? The soldier's uniform tells us that he is not to be trifled with. You see a soldier, dressed in battle dress. You're not to go up and punch him in the face, not unless you're stupid. because you know he's had training in military things. He might very well be armed. So you treat him with respect. Unless you're another soldier, then you know, oh, that's the guy I'm fighting against, and bang, bang, you know, he's shooting at me, and I shoot. It's justified. I can go out and kill him. I can't go out and kill just anyone. But he's on the other side. And this is kind of how the world works. And soldiers wear uniforms. They want to be understood. That's what their function is. In a city suit and tie informs us that this is an office work. You see someone wearing a suit and tie, you don't think, well, he's going to go out and dig the roads, or, you know, he's a carpenter, or, you know, he's the man who's going to make the deliveries. No, you think, oh, he must work in an office. You know, he's wearing an office suit. Unless it's a Sunday and someone's in their Sunday best going to church. But normally speaking, you would expect someone wearing a suit to be an office worker. But if it's an expensive suit and he's got an expensive watch on, or if it's a woman, she's wearing a nice suit as well, maybe with a skirt, or maybe a pantsuit as they call it in America, and got an expensive handbag, you might think, well, yeah, she's senior management. Or they might be members of the board. You know that, you see that. On the other hand, if you see on television a guy is wearing a scruffy old pullover and he's got a long beard and longish hair, and you think, he's an archaeologist. Because that's their uniform, to show that they are free spirits. They can go out and grow a big beard, and they can wear a jumper, have dirty trousers on, and a trowel. They carry a trowel, and they're going to go out and scrape the earth and find bits of Roman pottery or whatever. Everyone has uniforms of one sort or another, even if it's a casual kind of thing, and they want to fit the part. Unfortunately, the world is full of tricksters and con men. So you've got to be on your guard. There's all sorts of people who are wearing uniforms that they don't actually have the right to wear. It even happens with beggars. You know, you wouldn't think that someone would put on the uniform of a beggar and sit at the side of the street begging. You think, well, you know, who would do that? But there are people there are gangs of people who go out and they beg in the streets to elicit sympathy, to be given money, and if they go to the right place and they maybe have a baby with them as well, people are moved. They think, oh, well, I must help this person. I'm a good person. I'm going to give them money, and that would be totally correct if they were truthfully a beggar and in that difficult situation. But there are tricksters who fool you. And sometimes you have to accept that you're probably being fooled. This happened to me once in London. I was walking along the street and this man came up and approached me. And he said, oh, I'm in terrible plight, I'm trouble. I've lost my wallet and I need to go home, and I need to, get a train ticket to go home. Can you help me? And I looked at this man. He was, quite normally dressed actually, and I thought, well, he might be a trickster. But on the other hand, am I such a bad person that I'm not going to help someone in need? So I gave him £10 to get his train ticket. And he was going to send it back to me. I'll send it back to you. I'll, give me your address, and of course, I never heard from him again. And I knew that was most likely the case. But for my own peace of mind, I couldn't just ignore him and say, go to hell. Maybe he was in trouble, and I don't want that on my conscience. And people play on that. So this is the kind of world we live in, that we have to grow up, and we have to start understanding about roles and about what you can trust and what you can't trust. And that was a trivial incident. It didn't really matter one way or another. But it could be some con man, trying to, swindle me out of my house or whatever. That happens a lot as well. And on the internet, there's all these people trying to con you with this, that, and the other. You've got to be on your guard. And they mimic banks, they mimic government offices, they mimic Amazon. If you're not careful, you can be taken in, because these people are pretty smart with using computers, and you need to be on your guard about that. But of course, that's what they're playing on. Now, reluctantly, we have to be on our guard when dealing with the world. This applies especially to priests, gurus, psychiatrists, and others who claim authority in matters to do with the soul. Now, not every Hindu with a beard and orange robes is an enlightened holy man, and not all Christian priests are truly men of God. So this again is to do with trust and the betrayal of trust, which happens all too often. We've had all these paedophile scandals in the Catholic Church of priests and bishops abusing boys, and then it being covered up. I mean, this is absolutely shocking that people in that sort of responsible position obviously don't really believe their own faith. If they did, they wouldn't do those things. But they obviously don't really believe that there's going to be any kind of problem after death or even before death, that they can just go on, just like the guy who's conning people out of £10 for his train ticket, or the beggar person in the street. They just use whatever means they can to satisfy their own lusts in the present moment. And that is actually a really shocking betrayal, in my opinion. And the same is true of these so-called gurus who come from India, and they look all holy, the long beard and the turban and the long robe, and they talk about the Bhagavad Gita, and talk about chakras and sannyasins, and all that, and all people sitting around them and idolizing. Oh, he's the real thing, he's the guru. And they're, on the side, they're sleeping with the girls and conning the rest of them out of as much money as they can get. You had that guy Bhagwan Rajneesh, you remember him? With 100 Rolls Royces. Absolute con man. But there are people, he's dead now, but there are people who still follow him, still read his books avidly. Oh, so Bhagwan. Osho, they call him now. They don't call him Bhagwan anymore. He's an enlightened master. He's a con man, pure and simple. And there have been many of them, haven't there? And I've met one or two of them as well. And you've got to be on your guard, especially with matters to do with the soul. And I want to point out to you something. The word psyche, we use the word psyche quite a lot. And we use it in psychology, for example. The word psyche in Greek means soul. Yeah. So you have a soul, you have a psyche. And there are people who call themselves psychologists or psychiatrists. And yet, some of them are very good. I have not, I don't want to blanket brush all psychologists and psychiatrists. But there are many who don't actually believe you have a soul. So they're supposedly enlightened people about the matters of the soul who don't believe that you have a soul. They think you're a machine, that you have a brain, and the brain maybe has some programming in it, and that programming has maybe got a bit faulty for some reason. You had a nasty shock, or you had a nasty experience, and you need to be talked through that. Lie on the couch and we'll talk about it and we'll release it, and you'll feel better. Or I give you some pills, and the pills will damp it down, and you'll get better that way. Or maybe some electric shocks through your brain, that will deal with the problem. But they don't actually believe in the psyche as a real part of you, a real who you really are, your psyche riding in the body, not being the body itself. And that's the difference between true philosophy and fake philosophy, which is what we're mostly taught today in our culture. So be very careful when dealing with people who claim to be knowledgeable about the psyche but actually don't believe that it exists. So for many people, science has replaced religion as a reliable worldview, hasn't it just? However, science itself is really just a framework of ideas. I wonder if you realize that. And these ideas are often opinions and in many cases myths. So science does not really exist other than being ideas and opinions. That's what it is. Yes, the ideas, you can say that people have experimented, they've tested things, they've worked out the laws of nature, and they've written those laws down, and they've found that they can test them against other situations, and they still hold, and so the theory is accepted. But it's still ideas, and it's still just a bunch of theories strung together. And sometimes there has to be a revolution, and the whole lot has to be thrown out. And this happened with astronomy in the 15th century, or 16th century, when Copernicus was around. And he made the startling discovery, which actually I think had been known in the ancient times, but had been forgotten, that the sun is at the center of the universe and not the earth. People believed that before that the earth was at the center of the universe, and the sun and the planets and the stars all went round the central point of the earth. So that the earth-centric universe was very convenient for many things, particularly religion, to believe, there's only one earth, we are living on the earth, we are God's children on the earth, and we might, if we're good people, we might go to heaven up there somewhere, and if we're bad people, we will end up down there in the fiery pit under the earth. That was a very convenient idea. But then to be told, well, actually, the sun is in the middle, and the earth, like all the planets, goes around it, was very upsetting. And people were burnt at the stake. Giordano Bruno in Rome, I think it was the 2nd of January or something, in 1600, he was burnt at the stake. And you can see his statue there in the Campo dei Fiori in Rome today, where he was burnt, the spot where he was burnt. So changing ideas, when it's a big revolution in ideas, is very unsettling to those whose authority stands on the old system of ideas. So they have every reason to promote and to keep alive old paradigms because their authority as priests, popes, professors, whatever, depends on the solidity of that system. And when you challenge it and you say, well, actually you got it wrong, suddenly that deflates them, it deflates their authority, and they don't like that at all. So they will attack and destroy the person who's doing that. Good example is my friend Alan Wilson. I did a little video a couple of days ago about him. He was challenging the authority of historians of Britain about ancient British history. And he dug out all the old Welsh records, the things they had ignored and put away, and tried to forget about. And they'd invented a totally new history of Britain based on a mixture of dirt archaeology, which tells you some things, but it doesn't tell you very much about the actual people. and their own convinced ideas. Those are totally at odds with actually what was written down by people in the past and what they believed. And Alan was digging this up and finding proofs and finding evidence for the older history. And he was vilified, and his books were vilified. And the book I wrote with him and his friend Barham, we wrote the book together, The Holy Kingdom, that was vilified. So this happens with when people try to defend what they have faith in against anyone who will challenge it with something different. And that's something else you need to be aware of. Sometimes you have to keep your opinions to yourself if you want to stay alive. On the other hand, it does require bold people to step out and sometimes to challenge those paradigms so that something new can be born. So here's another example. Black holes are a mathematical myth. We cannot see them or approach one even if we could see it. Yeah. They only exist in the minds of scientists who need a mathematical fudge factor to make the impossible theories of origins seem possible. So the idea that at the very beginning, there was nothing. The world was empty, there was nothing existing, and then suddenly everything came about in a microsecond, gigantic explosion, and everything that we see in the universe was suddenly created. That's a myth. You weren't there, I wasn't there, they weren't there to see this. They say it happened billions and billions of years ago. How do they know? Well, they say, well, we can see from the movement of the galaxies, the redshift, we can see. How do you know that change in colour of the light that you're seeing is caused by redshift, a Doppler effect? You've no evidence for that. It's a theory. And this is what I mean when I say science is composed of theories. And it's also composed of myths. And this is one of the myths. And there are other ones. There's one called dark matter. They couldn't explain that the way galaxies form and rotate, there wasn't enough matter in them to hold them together. So they had to scratch their heads and they said, well, there must be what we call dark matter. It's there. We can't see it. We can't measure it. We can't, understand it. But it's there. It has to be there. If it weren't there, it wouldn't hold together. Yeah. And then they had other problems about the movement of things. They decided there was something called dark energy. It's there. We can't see it. We can't measure it. But it must be there. Otherwise, it wouldn't all work. Well, I've got news for them. They're ignoring the electric force. The electric force is 10 to the 38th power, as strong as gravity. Get that into your head. That's a 1 with 38 zeros after it, as strong as gravity. Gravity is irrelevant in the face of the electric force. And if you understand, once you understand that the universe is full of electricity, it's very, very charged. Everything is charged. What we think of as an empty space is actually a very diffuse plasma, like you find inside a neon tube. And it can carry currents. And so you don't need to have dark matter, dark energy, all that, once you understand that electricity is involved. And that's a whole other subject. And there was a movement called the plasma universe or the electric universe, trying to bring about a revolution in science, and particularly astrophysics, to bring into it the knowledge about electricity and the very important role it plays in the universe. And I was actually instrumental in putting on the first conference in Bath in 2018. We couldn't get a single astronomer, astrophysicist to come along, even though there was an astrophysics astronomy department in Bath University and another one in Bristol, 10 miles away. not one of them would come. So this is the world we live in. And people have faith in nonsense like black holes and dark matter. They don't want to see the truth to do with the role of electricity. Now, it might be that we are not understanding the full truth of what electricity is. We don't, but it's a much better model of the universe than one that's based only on gravity. So I'm not going to give you a lecture on that now, but I'm just pointing out to you that the science is full of dogmas, and it's full of assumptions, and it's full of myths, and they have to be challenged, and we have to find better myths. That's not meaning to say that we're ever going to get a perfect understanding, not in this world anyway, but we can improve on what we do know and extend it. So when you examine it closely, science is riddled with contradictions. There's another one. The theory of evolution is a good example. The fossil record tells us of mass extinctions. 5 or 6 of them. Whole classes of creatures disappear and new ones take their place. Were the theory true, we would see stages of change. But we don't. The changes are sudden and extreme. Thus, the theory of progressive change by accident is false. Only a creative mind could bring about such changes. So we see in the fossil record itself, sudden breaks and changes, whole things wiped out. At one point, I think even 99% of all life was wiped out. And then suddenly you have more advanced forms of life appearing almost instantaneously. How did that happen? There's no intermediate stages. There's no slight change here, a slight change there. A little bit of a DNA was tweaked there by an X-ray or something. And then another X-ray comes in and tweaks something else, and you end up with something different. That's what they want you to think, but it's not true. Things are created by mind. And a great mind has designed your body and my body and everything you see. And I don't believe that that great mind is on the planet, even. I think it's up there, and this life has been brought here. The laboratories are elsewhere. And that's what it says in the Bible, you know. God comes along and he plants this, that, and the other. First then the plants, and then the birds, and then the animals, and then the fish and the people. They are all seeded. The earth has been terraformed. And it could happen again all over the place. It probably has happened all over the place. I'm absolutely certain there's other planets that have people on them. Might not look like us, might not be our kind of ape-type people. But there might be some like us in some places. If the seeds has been made elsewhere, they could be put elsewhere. A bit like Stargate. I love Stargate. You ever watched Stargate? There's talk of a new series that they might be going to make. But they go through the Stargate up the tunnel of light, and they arrive at another Stargate, and they're on a different planet. And there are people there not dissimilar to us. And they have adventures and things. Then they come back through their Stargate and back to Earth. Maybe that's not so far from the truth, you know. We shall see, won't we? But anyway, so this is the situation that we're in. The theory of evolution, I think, is bunkum, as it's taught. But they teach it in their great cathedral on Cromwell Road in London. And David Attenborough believes it, so everyone has to believe it. So the changes are sudden and extreme. And the concept of God as creator gets around this impasse. Yeah, well, if you believe that there's a God up there, now, when I say a God up there, I think we've got to be a little bit more cautious the way we throw that word around as well. However, it too begs the question of purpose, means, and identity. Real philosophy has to address this problem. It is not enough to say, I believe in God, or I don't believe in God. As adults, we must examine this belief in more detail. So, real religion is not a cargo cult of ignorance. So, you heard about cargo cults and the people on some of the South Sea Islands and in the Second World War, I think it was, or just after, saw an aeroplane land and they left all this stuff and then they flew off. And the local people, the islanders there, oh, those are wonderful things. And they formed a cult about this big bird who came here and they gave us all this stuff and they're looking forward to it coming back and bringing them more stuff. We call that a cargo cult. And that's a bit like our approach to religion, certainly the Christian religion, and most of the others, well, all worship God, He's going to come and give us good stuff and rescue us. Well, I think we got to grow up a bit and try to understand a bit more about this universe that we live in. That's why I set up this college. I've been talking a lot about the Logos and the idea of the Logos stream and as being the breath of God. But the breath of God manifests in different places in different ways. And we need to begin to understand, I think, what that means. And the local branch offices of creation, it doesn't all happen, as a sort of great dream happening just like that, like we're taught. You die here and you go to heaven and there's all angels with their harps and things. I don't think it's like that at all. I think it's a gradation, and it's all to do with energies and energy potentials. And as we are, we could not take the energy potential of being on the sun, say. And if you were of the right vibrationary level and you had enough being about you, you could walk on the sun. And if you had even more, you could go to the Orion cluster. But that's a whole other subject. And I think the Egyptians were much more tuned to that. And I think the real Christianity was too. And that's what we're trying to uncover and get back to, or more of an understanding of, with these lectures. We can not want to exchange one indoctrination into dogma for another, more trendy, modern one. Yeah. So I think we're all indoctrinated. We're indoctrinated in one thing or another. You might be indoctrinated into Marxism, or you might be indoctrinated into Roman Catholicism, or Islam, or any number of different systems. And you have faith in what you believe, but that can be a hindrance to you. You need to be willing to open your mind and question what you believe, question the situation you find yourself in, and try to see how it can grow. And that way you can grow. You can grow in knowledge and you can grow in wisdom. And that, my friends, is what true philosophy is all about. It's love of wisdom, philosophia. So I thank you for listening. There will be more lectures like this to come, and I hope you find this useful. Thank you very much.